So let's grab some paint. We're gonna start with the metallics today. Probably need a, well, I don't know, we'll be all right. Well, thanks, Space Toy. Okay. So we want to do the metallics, kind of a beat up metallic. We're not going for super shiny here. So we're going to go with some more like brownish tones and then kind of like a neutral gray. Let me see. Sure, we can use this as just like Stonewall gray. High. So that we can use that as like a neutral gray. And then we'll go slightly cool for the lights. And then we'll need a white. Hi, Lucas. Gary, Fionn, welcome. All right. So we've got black, smoke. Don't do that, camera. 1 second. Let me unplug this and plug it back in. See if that makes it not blink like that. Black, smoke, Stonewall gray. I don't know, cold blue, ice blue, something, glacier blue, white. All right, pretty default selection. We're going to start by taking some black. This guy will be in the upcoming Kickstarter from Black Sun Miniatures. Right now, I don't have a link to the Kickstarter, but it will go live at some point. As soon as I have one, it'll go up on all the YouTube videos. Yeah. So yeah, I'm using the smoke here to just warm up this into like a brownish gray. And I've already base coated everything black. So we can just start working on some of these little metallic-y parts. Let me get the camera right. So when you're doing this kind of worn metallic, it's the more rough a metallic is, the less metallic-y it acts, right? We don't want to paint mirrors here for his little studs. So all these little, I don't know what to call them, they're doodads that face up towards the light. Are going to be significantly, they're not going to have like super heavy contrast that we're maybe used to seeing on metallics. They're going to be brighter overall, right? And this is one of the reasons we left the leather kind of dark, so that when I'm painting these little things, that I can make them a bit brighter, and that contrast with the dark black back or the dark leather background will help them stand out more. Osborne Art Studios. Is that Dan? Hello? So I am focusing to create more light across the surface. I have like a mix of old and new brushes here, and I gotta figure out which one is which. So for some of these, right, these little studs, and I'll show you in more close detail as I work. These ones that kind of face up, I want the light to kind of shine towards the camera, right? And you can see on the camera where the white dot is. That's going to be the brightest part, right? Will you bring him to SMC? Probably. Okay, then let's really zoom it for you guys. So I'm going to create a little smiley face that goes kind of away from the camera. These ones up top, I'm not. But like these ones down here. Right, so I create a little half moon. That's my ground reflection. And then my upward facing reflections will go much brighter. Okay, so I get a little dot. I'm actually going to switch to one of the chisel brushes for this, just because I think they paint dots nicer. And they're absolutely tiny, so I'm going to go glasses. All right, so I paint a little, let's get on camera. There we go. All right, so I paint the little dot there. And then on the far side, I can paint a little arc. Now these don't have to be perfect because this is a rough shape. They're not like perfect studs, right? Yeah. They have some irregularity to them. Even the sculpt itself has some irregularity. So the goal is to just get kind of the overall shape of them in. You can see there I paint the lower reflection point. And then as I work my way around to the shadow side, we'll get some more ground reflection. Sky reflection, ground reflection. I'm using the little facets that are sculpted to make it kind of irregular, right? I want that irregularity. I wouldn't do that fashion. I would not wear magnifiers while judging. The model is intended to be seen in hand, not under a microscope. Like, well, thank you. Thanks for the gifted subs. I appreciate it. You guys can thank my mom for a sub if you got one. See, she doesn't. She supports my art. It's so beautiful. Okay, So there we've got kind of the rough look to the studs, right? Got kind of the ground reflection, the dark horizon reflection, the brighter reflection. Then we're going to come in with the blue. And each little sphere is different, right? They have different orientations. So we have to be consistent. We have to imagine if it was like an entire sphere. Okay. We have to paint the little reflection kind of on the same spot of each one. Now, when we turn it, some of these are away from us. So we have to cheat a little bit and kind of move them depending on which one we're seeing. Like these down here, I'd cheat just a touch because they're kind of underneath. You never really see them, but give them a little something. Okay. And then the last touch is to add just a bit of white. And on these main ones, these really front-facing ones up top, put a little white dot on each one. Okay. So there you go. The studded bowls. Now, if it looks too shiny, you can take some of the gray. Because like I said, we don't want super duper shiny. Some of this middle gray and like a glaze consistency. And just kind of go over top. It'll tone it down a little and kind of unify them a little bit. Okay. Easy. We could throw some extra, well, because like I said, they're not perfectly even. Can throw a couple little spot reflections on some of them. That's like maybe there's a little facet that's catching some light somehow. Yeah. Okay. So things like the belt buckle. Here we're more interested in edges than anything else. When you have these really tiny parts like this, you kind of have to focus more on the edge because there's not a lot of space to try and do stuff with the middle. Right, so that can be enough to kind of give a metallic shape to it. And then we just keep pushing the light in a few corners. Now I'm not going to, I have to use the gradient because all I have is basically edges. I have to use the gradient to my, gradients within the edges to my advantage. Right, so knowing that this top corner here is going to be the one that's catching the most light, kind of like this, on the corner of the little, I don't know what that's called, the peg or whatever. I'm sure that has a term. And then this lower kind of arc here is also going to catch a lot of light. And then the hinge part in the middle. Right, but these over here, this stuff faces away, so we don't need to worry about that. Ah, prong or pin. All right. And then last little thing, just a dot. A couple little dots just to really give some shininess to it. Hey. Ta-da! So, don't overcomplicate it. It doesn't take much to give that metallic effect we're looking for. Evening, Sean. Okay, things like little loopy donut shapes, rings. You want the highlights to be on opposite sides. Right. They don't, especially really tiny ones like this. It doesn't take a whole lot. 3 layers basically. Right. So the orientation is the same. So we get a little light there. A A little light here on the opposite side. This one's covered, so we get another one like this. Maybe I can put a little bit of a shine right there. And then same deal with the white inside of that arc I just did. 1, 2, 3. Ring. Makes sense. Easy peasy. Especially for little studs like this, it doesn't take much of anything. You can try and get fancy and kind of do the same thing with like the ground reflection if you want, but it doesn't take a whole lot to do those kind of elements. All right, so back to these stud things. Which one is which one's going to be the shiniest, right? So we have to think about the overall shape of the shoulder is like a cylinder, but these are pretty flat on top of the cylinder, right? So each one is going to reflect a little different than the other. So we need to think about where that main light is going to be, and it's going to be somewhere pretty much like here, right? If we look at him from the front, the shine, and he's kind of stands to the side like this. The shiniest one is either going to be like this one or this one. So these are going to get about the same amount of light, and then they'll get darker as they go around. So instead of trying to paint like a perfect metallic shine on every single one of them, like an insane amount of gradients on each one, we're instead going to use the overall shape of the shoulder to kind of inform which ones are the absolute brightest ones, and then they'll get less light on each one depending their distance and orientation from that. Now they have little bits of like cupping and stuff to them, so we can play with some of that there, and they all have little studs on them. But we want this one, these two kind of to be the overall brightest ones. Okay, so something like so. Yeah. And then we'll continue to work our way around. And then on the back, we can kind of think about like these as another light. I'm just trying to be sort of irregular with the shape here. Focusing the light a little more in the bottom right. And then we'll work our way up in the light. Hola, Fenric. ¿Qué tal, amigo? So it's, you have to think about metallic. Like metallic is not necessarily, the upward facing one isn't always the brightest, right? It's not about which facing is upward. It's about, you have to think about like the angle of reflection, right? So which way the light comes in. So when the light is coming in, give me a second. I have something to draw on. Or I have a can. I always use the whole Red Bull can as like an example. I don't want to pour any drink out, right? So you can see here, the light is like directly above the camera. And the brightest part of the reflection is in the center of the can, right? It's because it's almost directly, they're both like directly above. Okay. But if I move, and it's going to be kind of hard to do this, but if I move the camera this way and kind of change the direction, that light is not always going to stay directly on top, depending on the orientation. It moves with the angle you view from. So let me grab a thing to just draw on. Right, so if you have a cylinder, take these off for a minute. It's the exact way that the specular works. Basically, all metallic is like 100% specular. So you have to. We could go like super scientific. You basically have two kinds of light. You have, let's make another. So if this is a metallic object, right, and the light's here, this is the sun, and the viewer is here. Hello, I'm Mr. Viewer Man. Right? You have two kinds of objects. You have metallic objects, which are 100% reflection. Justub and Iron Lungfish, thank you. You find that point, right? The angle of reflection is, deflection is equal to the angle of whatever, geometry. So the light comes in, and bounces to the viewer's eye, right? That's how all the light works. So there's light here. So if a really tall person was standing, you know, behind this person, I'm a giant. Where they see the highlight, where they see the brightest point is going to be different for them, right? Because their perspective changes, right? So this is reflection. Okay. Then you have another type of light. Let's draw another one. Refraction. Okay. If this was cloth, it works different. So you have your viewer again. I'm the guy. And you have your sun. Now, some of the light is going to do the same thing, right? Because not every material has some specularity to it. It's going to bounce off the surface and go right back in. The like glossier an item, the smoother an item is, the more consistent the specular will be. All objects have specular light, by the way, including like bricks and stuff. You just see less of it. But what happens with other materials, non-metallic, these are non-metallic as in things that are actually not metals, right? These are called dielectric. Which basically means any material that is not metal. So literally everything else in the world. Okay. These, the light comes in and it actually goes into the surface and it bounces around, blah, 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 and it comes out at another angle. And then this one comes in and it bounces and it goes over here. And then this one comes in and it bounces around. And then maybe it comes like that, right? So this is how you get more diffuse surfaces. So when you have like a sphere, you have the light coming from this way, right? You get a shadow and you get, you know, the bounce light, and it casts a shadow. Okay, this is why you have light on here. Right. You have light or halftones in art terms, right, up here. And then you have, and these don't change, right? This is diffused lighting or refraction. Okay, it all stays the same. And then you have your highlight, right? Somewhere on there. And that highlight can move. That's a specular light, right? So metallic objects work way different. So if you have a cylinder, right, and the viewer's looking at it from the front, and the sun is directly above, right? The light, the brightest part is not here, right? The brightest part's actually on right here, because the light comes down, hits on this angle, and then bounces into the eye. If the sun was actually behind the object, right? If this was the sun, or whatever light source, then it would actually be here, because then it would come in and bounce off the top, right? And then bounce into the viewer's eye. Okay, so you have to think about the orientation of the object. So for the goblin's shoulder, right, we think about his shoulder as a cylinder. And it's a cylinder that exists like in this orientation, right? And the light is actually kind of in front, and the viewer is seeing it from this angle. So we want the brightest part. We want these to be a little darker, and this line right here to be the brightest. Does it make sense? And actually with a cylinder, if this was a hole, like if this was a tube, you'd have the same thing on the inside, because that angle is the same. Good. All right. sciencey. And these are supposed to be tiny little chains, but they are so small that I can actually barely even see the like individual links. So I'm just kind of making dots. And you guys can kind of interpret it as a chain. Yeah, I mean, you don't have to, like, once you get used to painting it, you don't have to, like, it's not a thing you think about all the time, right? You're not, like, constantly doing the math in your head to be like, well, how would this reflection, blah, 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 blah. Like, no. You start to become, like, just familiar with how certain angles and things will reflect, and you kind of just figure it out. So you don't have to be a physicist to paint non-metallic metal, but it's helpful to understand the principles. So that you can, like, figure it out if need be. And the thing about miniatures, like painting non-metallic metal, is you're painting an illusion, right? You're painting the simulation of a metallic surface. So it's never going to be correct from every viewing angle anyways. So you kind of just have to fudge it sometimes to make it work. The literal most important thing you can do when painting non-metallic metal of any kind is just be consistent with your light placement. If you're consistent with your light placement and all the reflections kind of work this together, it'll be believable. It's when your eye is really good at picking up on inconsistencies. Like, hey, the reflection of this thing doesn't line up with the reflection of that thing. That doesn't make sense. Like, you're going to be much quicker to pick up on that than anything else. Then, like, oh, actually, the light should be 3 degrees that way. Like, no. Resto Roxana, thanks for the 6 months of tier 1. Appreciate it. And because these are kind of a rough surface also, right? These are not perfect surfaced machined metallic objects. We're going for like a rough hammered kind of look. We can be a little wild with the shape and reflections. Yeah, it can be wrong. Just be consistently wrong. Right, so now, like if we think about this shape, right, that this one's getting a lot of light, we have to think that this edge of this one is going to have very similar tangents, right, to the one that's getting a lot of light. So here, this edge is going to be really bright, because this edge faces towards the viewer. So you can see it over his shoulder that it's facing at you. Edges are interesting because really we don't have like perfect 90 degrees on most metallic ink surfaces. And I'll bust out the can again here in a second once I kind of finish with this layer. Right, we don't have perfect 90-degree surfaces. Okay, so if we had perfect 90-degree machine surfaces, everything would be like razor sharp, right? This would be like, this is like, the knife here is like really sharp, but even the knife has like a slight round, it's slightly round, right? It's not perfectly, it's really sharp. It's way sharper than like the edge of the can, right? But there is some roundedness to it. Okay. So what I mean by this roundedness is that you can see, like when I hold the can like this, right? This, you see this highlight a lot, right? This bright reflection on the edge of the can, and it looks super bright. And it basically looks like there's just a white reflection going all the way around the can, right? Along the lip. And it seems really like that's all there is to it. But the white is blowing out the fact that there's actually, look, now when I zoom in super close, you can see that there's not just a white reflection there. There's this white reflection, and then right next to it is this dark reflection, and then there's this kind of neutral reflection here, and then there's this little thin light reflection, and then a dark reflection, right? So there's another dark reflection right next to that light reflection, and then a slightly lighter neutral reflection next to that. So there's all of these little reflections inside of this lip, because it's a cylinder, right? This lip is a rolled edge. It has all of these like angles on it that cause there to be somewhere along that edge to be that bright reflection. And then when you view it like this, that bright reflection is so strong that it kind of blows out all the other little reflections that are happening. So you just kind of see that that super thin dark line goes away when you look at it like this. But when you really see it up close, there, it's suddenly there, right? So you're painting an edge, but that edge is really a tiny cylinder. And somewhere along that tiny cylinder tends to be some bright reflection. Make sense? Everyone's on board and tracking. And this is why like things like chains and loops are interesting, because chains and loops, right? They're called, by the way, a donut shape is called a torus. When you're painting a torus, you're essentially painting a cylinder that has been folded into a circle, right? So you've got a bunch of this cylinder that somewhere along that cylinder is going to be that brightest edge. Where came from the light for this mini? Where came from the light? It is coming like this. Basically, if I hold him like this, the camera is the light source. The camera is the light source, and the viewer is like this. So the light is like that. That's why the backside is more in shadow. So the light is this way, because he really stands like this. When you stand him with the other two, this one faces kind of dead forward. He faces kind of like this. And then the other one faces the opposite way. So they're kind of like in an arc with each other. Any further questions? Yes, no? You are all non-metallic metal experts now and ready to go out and just crush it, right? You have a favorite of the basic shapes? No, I don't have a favorite. So you can see I'm kind of like doing a little bit of stippling here. I'm intentionally trying to like rough up the surface here to give it a bit of a weathered appearance. A rhombus is not a basic, that's not a three-dimensional volume. He is speaking about like cylinders, spheres, cubes, or any like polyhedron, torus, cones. Real quick, I'm going to take some of this smoke, just kind of thin it down some. Use this to stipple some more, give some kind of like almost rusty texture to here, add some color depth. Oh yeah, man, the dodecahedron, that's definitely my favorite shape. My favorite ingon. Or I guess it would be hedron in that case. So you say indron when you're talking about a shape with X number of sides, right? Or n number of sides in this case. Do you say indron when talking about a shape that has that many sides? Well, when you're talking about 2D shapes, yes, 2D shapes, an ingon, Gon, is any shape that has an equal number of, or any equilateral sides of any number, right? Like an octagon, a hexagon, dodecagon, or whatever. Can you say indron? Because a dron refers to, a hedron refers to any three-dimensional shape with equal sides. Or I guess it would be equal faces at that point. A rhombodron is not a shape. That's not a thing. The Hebron. Thanks for the prime. Appreciate it. Inhedron. Inhedron. That's my new thing. Come on, brain. Industrial. My new industrial band. Industrial electronic band. Inhedron. Yeah, I was trying to think of specifically what kind of music they would be. Industrial math metal. Okay, so the little sphere, right? Do the little smiley face, put the dot. Yeah. Easy. Okay. So when you zoom out, right? See, now you can see them nicely on top of that dark leather. So we've got a few more things to paint on this guy. We've got to do his hair. We've got to do his earring. Got to do all these little metallic parts. Got to do his knives and stuff, and then paint these heads. Let's just work on the hair a little bit. All right, the hair is basically going to be very similar in color to the metallic, but we're going to go more grayish with it. Do you guys get carpenter bees in your area where you live? Because they've been crazy for the last couple weeks, and they keep flying into the windows. So every so often you just hear this like what sounds like a stone hitting the window. It's just a bee, just like thunk. Yeah, I just smashed into the window. They definitely won't mess with you. They're like, they're not aggressive bees at all. Yeah. Bumper car steering. Yeah, basically. See you later, Pocknock. No, they're not. Bumblebees are like the fuzzy honeybee kind, right? These are like, they're more black. Let me see if I can find a picture of a carpenter bee. I don't think they're bumblebees. They're pretty big too. And they're obsessed with your house because they're trying to get in like the wood. Yeah, they're like mostly black with a little bit of yellow on their back. Yeah, where bumblebees have like more yellow on their thorax or whatever, the back part. Oh, really? They can't? They just bonk into stuff. Like, I didn't know the males couldn't sting at all. Just enjoying bumping into things. It's like they're drunk. They're just little drunk bees. Just want to chew on some wood. Paper wasps. We get wasps and hornets. I don't know if we have paper wasps. What do those look like? We had these ones that like paper wasps. We got a few. No, I don't recognize these. Where are they from? I guess technically yellow jackets are paper wasps, so we do have yellow jackets. Oh, unlike yellow jackets and hornets. Yeah, I don't think we have these. No, we have yellow jackets. Those things are mean. I'm not a fan. I'm also not allergic, so if I get stung, it like goes away in like an hour. It's like, oh, that hurt, and then it just goes away. I got stung by some hornets at Nova one time. I was just outside eating some pizza by the food trucks. This hornet like flew up into my shirt while I was sitting down and couldn't get out. So it was like, well, I'm just gonna sting you on the stomach a couple of times. Jerk. All right, so if I want to make sure that the hair stays looking black, I need to make sure I don't overdo the lights on the hair. It can be really easy to you need to have relatively small lights on a black surface. So I need to make sure I don't overdo the light on the black hair. I can have like a couple parts, but even then I'm using like a pretty dark neutral gray. I'm not going to go nearly as bright as the metallics here. I can have a couple little spots of light. I need to make sure that it stays pretty dark overall, right? So that it still looks black. If you overdo it, it's really easy to make it look gray instead. Okay. So, add a little bit of shape. Just use like a dark gray here just to give some shape to that hair. Stinging caterpillars? Never heard of that. Oh, we got mosquitoes. It's a swamp here. We've got plenty of mosquitoes. We've got the trucks that come around and spray for them. Because they get really bad. Hate them. Absolutely hate them. Telling you, man, they find a way. The hornets will like find a way into your clothes. Awful, awful little bastards. They are the worst. What do they even do for the ecosystem, huh? They don't produce honey or anything. Monument Hobbies. Hello, welcome. 131 people. How is it going? We're painting, working on this goblin man. Trying to paint some tiny little elements. Do the big zooms while we paint his hair and little hair ties and knots and blah blah blah, his earring. How's everyone? How's everybody doing? Right. Give that a little shine to that earring. Everybody feeling good on a Wednesday while you're all stuck behind an ad. Gotta have that little zigzag, you know what I'm saying? I'm excited for you guys to see the box art for the new Chimera bust. I am quite happy with it. There you go. Now he's got a little silver earring. Okay, what's left to do on? I think it's my best NMM I've ever painted. But hey, that's just me, man. It's deep. No, not this figure. The Chimera bust. You haven't seen that, so how would you know? All right, there we go. Hair done. Earring done. Little what's called thing done. His little rings. We got to do his necklace, his dagger, the back of this, these doodads on the back, and then finish up some of the skin because the hands and feet are still not done. Got to paint his nails and paint the little shrunken heads. I don't know what, I guess I want to do these gold. Yeah, they're very interesting, like compound curves and stuff on the new bust. Quite fun to paint. Let's do. Yeah, you could. I mean, that's fine. Captain Mannerings, hello, welcome. Is this the one I'm thinking of? Ah, well, you can see my version very faded in the background also. But you'll get a better sense of it when... Yes, that is my painted version, very faded in the background and in black and white. But I want you guys to see the colored version. Just blacking out their hair. You don't see it on the shelf behind me because it's over there. So you're wrong. Nah. Because I specifically put stuff you guys aren't allowed to see over on that side of the room so that you don't see it on stream in the background. Oh, he's definitely picking it. He's up in there. He's like a knuckle deep in there. Yeah, he's not blowing any snot rockets. That would be a waste. So I don't know if these are leather straps that are supposed to be holding the head to his belt, but I'm going to paint it as if it's the hair actually tied around the belt itself. I think it's just more interesting that way. All right. Okay. We're going to take, it's been an hour and a half. I'm going to take a quick, like 5-minute break, go grab a drink, use restroom and stuff. So, all right, I'm back. I have a question for you guys, actually. I'll give you the option. So we've got, I'm probably not going to paint all 3 on stream. I'm going to paint, I think, 2 of the 3 and then 1 off stream. So I'm going to give you guys the choice. How do I make a pole? Is that like a... all right. Pole. Open the setup menu. All right, question. Which goblin to paint on stream? We'll go chubby boy, hat boy. So, I don't know how to actually... Oh, there you go. So you guys can vote now, huh? Of the 2, because I'm probably only going to paint 2 of the 3 on stream. They both have very similar metallic and everything, so they have way more non-metallic than he does. Up to you which one you want me to paint. We'll let you decide. But they're so similar. But I don't think it would be interesting to paint them both. But they are different enough from the other goblin, I think, to be interesting. Chubby boy with 63%, 5 votes. Wow. All right, chubby boy it is. The main goblin will be painted on his own off stream. That works for me. He's the one that goes up front. It's easier for me to concentrate on painting the main one by himself. Chubby Boy is the winner. All right. So let's grab Undead skin tone, which is basically just a reddish gray. It's like kind of pinkish. And we will paint these mummified heads. We're still going to use the smoke because that's our mother tone. All right. We'll use a little black also. Darken this up. So you can see that tonally this is not much different as a starting base. But it's enough. So we're just getting some coverage down. The funny thing about this, I don't even think you'll be able to see them in the box art photo. I actually do have 3 individual bases, so the figure will come with all 3. You might be able to buy them individually during the Kickstarter, but they also come with singular bases too. So they have one big base or individual bases for each one. And I think the group photo of all 3 of them, you won't even be able to see these little heads. So I just need to know that as I come around to this backside, this is more in shadow. I can get a little bit of this color onto the shadow side, but I don't want to go crazy. I am going to, this will be much brighter than this. This is still more just like a shadow tone. It will be, I'm going to use the blue, that same glacier blue that I used in the non-metallic to desaturate this. If you watched how I painted the vampire bust, very similar in principle. So we want some kind of reddish tones in the shadows, and then as we build up the light, we're going to add more blue to desaturate this purplish color. Has anybody checked out Adrian's channel on YouTube? I think it's pretty interesting to watch him paint. Okay, now I can take this and I'm just going to slowly add some of this blue to it. I'll grab just a little bit of the smoke. We're slowly going to build up the light and desaturate this kind of grayish as we move up. He did one piece that that I particularly enjoyed. It was him working on one of the pieces of art. I think it might have been the cover art for, what's the name of that game? Was it Camelot, or he did a game for Cool Mini or Not? They had it's like a King Arthur thing. Is it Camelot? What is the name of that game? Anyways, the him painting that piece was quite interesting. I feel like Camelot sounds wrong for some reason. See how they get kind of, this pink turns very undead looking because it doesn't have any of that like yellow in it that we'd expect, that the warm orange tones. Random, at any tips on freehand? I started the Tiki guy from Zaba, and a Polynesian tattoo would fit perfectly, but I don't think first freehand, so likely won't do it. But would like to do something. Yeah, I mean, go watch the like the fighter tattoo video is the best thing I can tell you to go watch about doing freehand, or the punk elf lady. But basically, like, you want to kind of block in the basic shape first, and then you kind of fill in the gaps as you work, right? Yep. Okay, keep adding the blue. I'll even add just a little bit of gray to it. Now you can see the lights really become desaturated. And that's what's gonna make the skin feel very unalived. Sometimes, yeah. I mean, I try and be clean when I'm doing freehand, but you can fill in the negative space back with the skin tone if you need to clean it up. Little zombie heads. Okay, and then this one, really the light is more on the side of the head. This one turns quite away from the light, so we're going to focus more light on the side. I'm not painting it like this, because that's not the direction the light's coming from. Focusing the light on the side of this head, because that is the direction of the light. Which is very easy because we're so used to painting light coming from, you know, head on, haha, get it, you know, directly at the face. It's it can feel a little weird to paint like the lights on the side. But in this case, that's what we're aiming for. Okay, really add some, and then I will take some of the pure blue. Just add some final little spotlights to the skin. Just some small specular reflections to the ear, and the forehead. Okay. Shrunken heads. And now I can take a little of the smoke now. I can go over these little stitches. because their eyes are stitched shut. The eyes and mouth, actually. And then just like we did with his hair, I'm actually okay if their hair is slightly more grayish or even more brownish. So I'm painting lines vertically, right, along the direction that the hair grows. And I'm not overly focused on individual hairs right now. I'm just trying to do kind of brush strokes to get the shape of the hair right. And then as I get closer to the lights, as I get more lights, I'll be a little more intentional with the texture. Right, something like that. And then we'll do one more layer using a mix of the smoke and the cold blue just to give it kind of a brownish tone. Make it feel a little different than his hair. Okay. I can come back in with the black and make some texture in the shadow just to darken some areas. Make the hair a little more shiny. Just pushing up the light. There we go. Some zombie heads. I guess they're mummy heads, but yeah. Okay. What else we got? We got the thing on his back. We've seen that. We got some straps and stuff. We got to do his feet and hands. Let's jump back to his skin, I guess. Huh? Oh, he's picked. Their noses are picked, sir. He's picked them clean. So, I remember we used this. And we used the smoke like everywhere. Actually, I think we used the brown. But we don't need much brown. And we used, I think marks. I think we used this and maybe some kind of light yellow, but this will work. So, okay. And we need some kind of skinish tone. Really, I want like salmon skin. Salmon skin. Need something slightly red orangey for like the knuckles and stuff. Right? Okay. So, I'm going to take some of the green, this brown, a lot more brown. We're going to start to clean up around his hands and stuff. All right. So, one, we need to just darken these lower knuckles. This is all kind of in shadow. Right. This is an actual opportunity to use black. So we want to paint the separation between his fingers. Then you can see how orange this is. We'll mix some of that guy with the orange to create this kind of just, I don't know, camo greenish kind of color. We're going to paint his knuckles using that. You can see I've kind of like roughly gone over top of it, but what I want to do is I want to find the same value as his skin. So the same level of light and dark. Go around his knuckles. Which means on these lower parts, I need to add a little black to it. You can see almost I'm getting to that color, right? This feels similar. Okay. And then I need to add more of the green. So I'm slowly going to add more green to it. Maybe a little bit of the skin tone. And I want to start to transition it from one to the other, right? So as it gets away from his knuckles, it eventually becomes more greenish. You guys can see. Yeah. So see, it now slowly fades into this kind of reddish orange feeling, kind of dirty color. Now I'm going to take this orangish tone and start to add some of the skin tone to it. Hello, Mike. I don't want it too bright yet. I'm going to add some light to the knuckles and like a small, I'm going across this way, right? What am I doing? I'm painting the knuckles like this, right? Because I'm trying to make those little folds and wrinkles in the knuckles. And you can see as I move up in the light that skin tone sort of fades into the skin. Yes, I'm going to MFCA. I will be there. Okay. Easy enough. And I continue to do the same. More skin tone. Yes, I will be at SMC also. I am teaching a class at SMC. And I will be doing a tour of Spain afterwards. In Monte. Yeah, I don't know what MMSI is. I am teaching a Cast Shadows class at SMC. I mean, I know what MMSI is, but I don't know where it is. Okay, it's in Chicago. No, I'm not coming to that. That's too far. I go to MFCA because it's pretty close. It's a nice short drive. Well, short-ish. It's like 5 hours, but it's not too bad. Okay, now I'm going to take a little bit of the salmon skin tone and a glaze and just kind of go over the top and just unify this in the shadows. And that's how you get kind of skin tony knuckles effect on the goblin skin. We can do the same for these areas right here, you know what I'm saying? You know what these are? I don't know if I can say this word on YouTube. See you, Jonas. Yeah, the goblin pepperonis. Okay, so same deal. These I want to be, I don't know, slightly less red to not look ridiculous, but you get the idea. All right. So for the shadow side of his hand, we just need to define some of these elements. Nothing too fancy. What's the difference between a goblin and an orc? In this case, this is what they're called. They're called goblins. And I think in I think if you go by Lord of the Rings, there actually isn't really a difference, right? It's just like their size. I think they're the same thing. And this one, I guess you could argue whether it's a goblin or an orc, but I'm pretty sure they're goblins. Anyways, there's not much of a difference. Orcs, I typically think of like the bigger tusks and stuff. But every fantasy setting, they're slightly different. Yeah, I feel it's really, really, really dependent on setting. So here on these knuckles, I've already kind of like highlighted them, right? So on these, it's like a different method. For these, I can just glaze some of this salmon skin on top. And I can always increase the lights that I need. Do it. Right, so I just introduced some of the skin tone to the knuckles. I also want to introduce some into the ears a little more. I'm not really trying to change the value here. I just want to shift the color. You can see while it's still kind of wet, I can like remove a little bit. Yeah. I can come back in and add some lights to the knuckles. Like so. And then his feetsies. So this back foot is going to be, can be a little darker. It's kind of in shadow. But I still need to add some light to it. So anyways, I'm not trying to do like super dark shadows on top of the foot. Yes, he has all these little veins and bones in his feet, but the light is still coming from up above. So we don't want to overshadow in between, right? Things like the light on these little veins is going to be pretty subtle. Don't overdo it. Take these off. Don't need these for this. Right, and then when I do the next layer, that's when I can start to add a little of the, come in and kind of hit some of these details, start picking out the veins and stuff. Got little foot straps. Now I add little final lights, right? Start to highlight the knuckles of the toes and things. Okay. And I don't want to overdo the feet because that's not the area that I'm trying to draw attention to. I'm okay leaving them a little darker. And I can take and make a little filter. Kind of tie all this stuff together. Some of these shadows between the bones are a little too dark. Right, the bones, the shadows in between the toes, I want those. I don't want shadows, like super deep shadows on top of the foot. Even this one right now is a little too dark. So just bring that up a little bit. Stop being a wuss, Richard. Just do it. Just paint the freehand. Do it. If not today, then when? Don't let your dreams be dreams, guys. There you go. Oh, sad now that children won't understand that meme. That is an internet great. Go into the internet hall of fame, that one. We need a meme Hall of Fame, actually. Ones that truly stood the test of time. Paint his little Tootsie nails. That is a classic. The Rick Roll. I'm sure there's other meme songs, though, that would be up there. Okay. What else? Oh, my back. Oh, my back. What else we got? Couple more leather straps and stuff to do. Little ones like in his hair and things. And on his feet. What else? I have no idea who that is, Sebastian. Will Salsa. That sounds familiar. Was he on like Mad TV or something? Yeah, big white guy. Okay, and last little bit. I think, I don't know. I don't want the neck strap to be like pure brown. I don't want it to be like leather brown. They're just some kind of like runes. They're not ears. They're just some kind of, yeah, medallions of some sort. Their noise is what they are. Hello, Ragnarok. Thanks for following. So we'll just get these guys painted. Just some kind of dark cord. And then we just need to paint those, huh? So what am I going to use? Yellow ochre, this brown, and skin tone white. Maybe they're coins. I mean, you know, they could be. It's a possibility. Come on. Don't overthink it, you know? So this is actually going to be the brightest one because that's the one facing at the viewer. And then the others will be more focused on the edge details. I think we actually will need a proper yellowish tone for these. Okay. So just trying to leave the space in between. I might have to go over it one more time. Okay. And then we push the light more. See, so that coin's shiny because it's the orientation is facing more towards camera. And then the edge of these coins are facing. Or medallions, whatever. All right. Then we grab just a little bit of white. Push this just a little bit further. And then we can use a couple of dots. Just to really increase the shine. Cool. Yeah. There you go. Well, I've got to paint his fingernails. Yeah, sure, why not? Let's do his toenails real quick. Basically, I'm going to take this black green and just mix a little bit of yellow into it. This yellow doesn't have enough like strength of yellow to really change the color here. So it's going to turn kind of like greenish. And then I'm just going to paint little tiny vertical lines. Towards the end of the fingernail. His feet fingers. And right, so little lines. Then I'll add a little bit more light to it. And then these even smaller. Just to give a little light to the end of them. And there we go. And I will do the dagger and stuff you can't see from the main view off stream, including this thing. But that is Goblin numero uno down. What do you guys think? And then next week we can start Chubby Goblin with his big nose. He's so happy. This one's happy. He's angry. He's smug and angry. This one's happy boy. Well, cool. Hope you guys had fun. Enjoyed that. I'm going to see who's online.